Center in El Barrio in New York City. We are here today to stand in solidarity with Venezuela, with all of you beautiful people. I want to say a quick note. At the Justice Center, we're in East Harlem, a historical place of struggle, particularly for the Puerto Rican struggle, right? And I think it's funny how Trump and the US were so ready to send all this aid to Venezuela, yet they let thousands of Boricuas die in the aftermath of Hurricane Maria. And I want to talk about how Venezuela has offered aid to Haiti, to Puerto Rico, and New Orleans. And how not too far away from us in the Bronx, how Sicko is giving grants to nonprofit organizations working with some of the poorest and most oppressed communities in the Bronx. That is what solidarity looks like. That is what aid looks like. And I also want to talk about the solidarity of the Haitian people. I want to talk about how it was the Haitian Revolution that inspired Bolivar and that inspired the emancipation of Venezuela and all of the South American nations from the grasp of Spanish colonialism. I'm excited to introduce our sister Joyce Gay from Haiti Liberté.
Hi everyone. We need the energy to get that man out of the White House. Okay, the S-hole who has the nerve to call people S-hole, while this that he has is an S-hole. Anything clean came out of it lately? There you go. Okay. I represent Haiti Liberté. This is one of the media that doesn't go into fake news. And so basically support your local media because the corporate media, and you know who they belong to, they've been crapping on Venezuela for quite a while. Talking about, it's a corrupted government. Come on. Come on. This country invented corruption. Please. Okay? So this is what they do. They try to demonize you so that they can kill you and everybody say, it's okay, he was corrupted. Please. So we don't play that game. We stand in solidarity with everybody because we're never alone when we're fighting. Sometimes we have the impression that we are alone. We're not. I mean, even if people don't take to the street, but they know what is wrong. When we are in diapers, we know what is acceptable and what is not acceptable. It's not acceptable to starve people. Where has I do radio, so I keep on asking that question for a long time. Where has U.S. imperialism gone to and things have gotten better? I'm still waiting for the answer. Do you know anywhere? I just said, give me one example, not 1.5, 1.25. One example where they've been and things have gotten better. My countrymen say that some people, when they pass by, grass doesn't grow after they pass by. This is the U.S. Grass doesn't grow. So, Haiti has been a model of freedom for the whole Caribbean and Latin America. And not just that, the whole world. Because when there was slavery everywhere else, we said, hell no. We were not born slaves, we're not going to remain slaves. First of all, we're not slaves, we're enslaved. Same thing with poor. People are not poor, they're impoverished. Okay? We have to say things clearly. Okay? Nobody goes to bed and say, you know what, I have a dream and I want to wake up poor. No. That's because somebody stole you. Whatever you have, that's why you're impoverished. Okay? So we have to remember that. And they flip history on his head, telling us that oh, if there ain't no bourgeois, we're not gonna get any jobs. No, our work make bourgeois. Okay? We have to get history straight. Okay? So we stand with in solidarity with Venezuela, because Bolivar has come to ask for help when we were getting our freedom ourselves. Even though he betrayed us later because he was afraid of the US when they had their first meeting of Latin America. He said, the US said, if you invite Haiti, we're not gonna come. They said, okay, US come in, we're not gonna invite Haiti. Hey, listen, but Chavez, remember that, and Chavez is not a coward. And Maduro is not a coward. Okay? So they stand up and they said that after we try to help Haiti by giving them the oil for a lower price so that we can use that for our infrastructure, they still said it doesn't matter if our president might be corrupted, but the money, some of it at least will go to the country. That's why they give the oil for a cheap price. But unfortunately, as you know, a lot of presidents that we have in Haiti have been parachuted by the US, and what did they do? They stole the money. Okay, so as you could see, Haiti is definitely of evil, fighting against that. Do you see anything in the corporate media? There you go. So that means you need your own media to tell the truth, because we said that we ain't gonna take the crap no more. Okay? So we are here and we support, we are together. The way to make things happen is that stay together, talk to each other. Teach one, each one teach one, because you're not going to be taught by the corporate media. So then you know what the truth is, and you'll all be here in this church. And thank you for the church, because some churches are totally, you know what. But some people in churches also have been militant, and they have changed things. So we cannot just throw all of them under the bus. So we stand together, and viva Venezuela, viva Haiti, and no more wars. We need the money for education. Trop caca, trop caca.
All right, well next, as you can probably already see, we're very happy to be joined by Jill Stein, who among other things is a multi-time candidate for the Green Party for President of the United States and a fighter for social justice and for peace around the world. So please welcome Jill Stein.
Awesome. Oh, this is what democracy looks like. It's really great to be here. It's such an honor. I'm watching you here as I speak. I'm watching you on the live stream, and you are such an inspiration. So I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart. I want to thank you for being there, for being the voice of so many of us, and for speaking for the conscience of America. And I want to thank you for saying hell no to regime change in Venezuela. We're saying not just no invasions, we're saying no coups, we're saying no sanctions, and we're saying no sabotage. This would be regime change number 68 for the United States since the Second World War. That is what the foreign policy of empire looks like. And we know what that means. That means endless war, it means failed states, it means mass refugee migrations, crimes against humanity, the destruction of our environment and democracy. We know what regime change looks like. From Guatemala to Iran, from Vietnam to Chile, Honduras, El Salvador, Libya, the track record is very clear. It's not only a catastrophe abroad, it's a catastrophe at home, and we know all too well how this is bankrupting us at home, taking up 60% of our national discretionary budget and growing. It's impoverishing our social programs and our safety net and poisoning our democracy. It's also the largest component of our income tax bill. The average American paid an astounding $3,400 on your last income tax cycle for the Pentagon. What did we pay for social programs? About $80. For welfare programs, $40 for the EPA. This is absolutely outrageous and unacceptable. And the one thing that will stop the war machine in action, as you well know, it's us. It's you, it's me, it's our friends. It's us standing up and doing exactly what you are doing today. We have a lot of educating to do because mainstream media is very busy miseducating everyone, pushing hard 24/7 on their propaganda campaign, just like in the run-up to Iraq, just like the weapons of mass destruction that preceded Iraq, to try to justify it, to try to demonize this government, you know, to be pounced on and taken over. You know, this is an old story. Back in Vietnam, it was the Gulf of Tonkin attack on our ship. For the Gulf War, it was the incubator babies, you know, and these all turn out to be completely false news. So I want to give a big shout out to the real news, to the real press, as opposed to the oppress and the repress that we hear from every day that's pretending to be a real press. We can't have a democracy without a real press, and we owe big thanks to the likes of the Gray Zone Project and Max Blumenthal and the Internet, the Intercept, and a variety of alternative media and the resistance organizations like the Answer Coalition and the wonderful job that you've done today in organizing this event. So we have to stand up, and we got to stand up now. We know this is about oil. We know Trump said that directly to Andrew McCabe. It's written in McCabe's book, where Trump actually stated out front, Venezuela, that's the country we should be going to war with. They've got all that oil, and they're right at our back door. We know that Bolton said it to Fox TV just a couple weeks ago, where he's talking about this so-called troika of tyranny, and then he explains what the troika of tyranny is. It's the countries that we want to grab resources from. And he actually said it will make such a difference to us, to U.S. corporations, if we can basically grab that oil. We know also that this is a Koch brothers war in the making, because who is it that has been the big sponsor of Mike Pompeo and Mike Pence? They're basically owned by the Koch brothers, and so is little Marco Rubio. And these are the guys who are really pushing for regime change. Why do the Koch brothers want regime change? Because they need Venezuelan oil. They need the particular type of very crude oil, which you can only get in Venezuela and a few other places. So this is a war for oil, if there ever was one. One last thing I want to say, you know, sanctions is war. Sanctions is regime change. And we have to say no to sanctions in the same way that we have to say no to war. They're absolutely deadly. Check out Abby Martin, who's been doing such a great job of coverage in Venezuela. She did a terrific interview with the United Nations Special Rapporteur on Human Rights, Alfred de Zayas, where he says, clearly, sanctions are not only illegal, they may amount, in fact, to a crime against humanity. And I think there's no doubt that they do. It's estimated that thousands or maybe tens of thousands have already died from the impacts of sanctions. And what we're seeing now with these blackouts, you know, there's not much question that the U.S. is part of this devastation, and, you know, if not actually leading the charge. How do we know that? Well, because Marco Rubio tweeted about it within 2 minutes. He knew exactly where the power had gone out and for how long and what breadth and so on. So, you know, it's clear this was not reported over the course of 2 minutes. Marco Rubio really had to know what was going on. And we know that the sanctions made the blackout much worse because Venezuela did not have the resources and the kind of fuel it needed for the backup generators. So the bottom line is that it's really in our hands. It's up to us We've stopped this kind of outrage before. We can stop it again. You know, thank you so much for being there today. It's up to all of us, and hopefully people are listening out there in cyberspace right now. We're trying to push it on our social media as well to get the word out. We all need to call all of our so-called representatives and tell them that they have to represent us, not the oil industry, not the war industry. This is about standing up for the people of America and the people of the world. We all deserve an America and a world that works for all of us. Thank you so much for being there today.
To the point that Dr. Jill said about sanctions being a weapon of war, we have to understand before the invasion of Iraq was even officially launched, an estimated 1 million Iraqis died because of the sanctions imposed by the US government. So we say no sanctions, no war, no coup, no intervention today. So I'm excited to introduce Mara Verheyden-Hilliard, who is a constitutional rights lawyer. Give it up for Mara.
Good afternoon. This has been an amazing morning from everyone who's been at the White House, marching through the streets of Washington, D.C., and every single person that's here is here because you have fought against the tide of the propaganda of the United States, because you think for yourself, because you're doing the single thing that this administration, this government hopes won't happen. And that is to stand up against the vast weight of the U.S. military apparatus working hand in hand with the media of the United States, acting as they do just simply as a megaphone for the lies that we're hearing over and over and over again from the neocons, from the war hawks. And let's be clear when we're talking about this, that it's not just the Trump administration, it's not just the Republicans, it's the Democrats, it's every part of the war machine that makes this run. And let's also be clear that right now the US government is already at war against Venezuela. Sanctions are an act of war, and this is an illegal war. These are war crimes, crimes against humanity, violations of the UN Charter, violations of the Geneva Convention, violations of Nuremberg. And don't think Mike Pompeo doesn't know it. Just yesterday he announced that he will not allow anyone from the ICC, the International Criminal Court, he won't allow them into the United States. Because war criminals know, they know that they're war criminals. I mean, this is an administration that, while generally not environmentally friendly, believes in a form of recycling Elliott Abrams, recycling John Bolton. Sometimes it's not recycling, it's just garbage. But right now, for everyone that's here, and for everyone that's standing up, let's remember, in the 6 months before the invasion of Iraq, the Washington Post ran 140 front-page articles advocating in favor of attacking Iraq. Let's not pretend that the media is the free media that they say that they are, when they act simply as the drumbeat propaganda arm. When you have the Washington Post with regard to Venezuela, when there was a terrorist attack and they were dropping bombs on the Supreme Court, the headline of the Washington Post, and you can look at it, called it a protest. Dropping bombs on the Supreme Court, a protest. Now, Standing Rock, indigenous people and others standing up, that's a riot. People in Washington, D.C. marching against the Trump administration, that's a riot. People in Ferguson, that's a riot. But when it comes to people in Venezuela dropping bombs on the Supreme Court, slaughtering Chavistas in the street, it's just protest. It's just creative protest. So everyone today, for everything that you're fighting for, and for everyone that you're going to talk to as you leave here and organize in opposition to the war that we're in now, and that we have to stop, let's all say it. Hands off Venezuela! Hands off Venezuela! Hands off Venezuela! Hands off Venezuela!
Peace, how y'all doing? My name is Nino Brown. I'm an organizer with the Party for Socialism and Liberation. I'm a teacher. I teach 5th grade, and all power to the teachers. So I'm going to introduce some students from the Bronx. So without further ado, I'd like to bring up Brittany Morales, is a Bronx student activist. So give her a round of applause.
Mike, so don't mind me, I don't do this normally, but I just want to say that we came out here to show that we are supporting them. We came all the way from the Bronx, we came from the South Bronx to represent ourselves. Not only are we a student activist for what's going on in the community, we're going to speak against the government. We're not going to stay quiet because we're young. We're not going to stay quiet because we rather hang out after school. We're staying after school to do work. We're staying after school to prepare for days like this. We're staying after school to make sure that everybody wakes up at 6 o'clock in the morning so that we're able to come down to Washington, D.C. and let us be heard. I won't stop. We won't stop until we're heard. We won't stop until this against Venezuela and everybody else stops. We need to take control of our government. Just because he's our president doesn't mean he's going to decide when we do things and how we do things. If we're going to die, if we're going to have a war, we're not going to wait for him to tell us, oh guys, come on, it's a war. We're not going to be there. Every time he needs us, he's going to send the army and let them die, and we have to deal with the grieving. We're not going to allow that. So I just want to say we came out here to let Venezuela know that they're not alone, and no matter what, we're still going to be here fighting until Trump stops what he's doing. It's not okay and it's not right. So... All
right, now speaking about that solidarity that Venezuela has had with some of the most oppressed communities here in the United States, I'm excited to introduce Lucio Solano from Petro Bronx.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Lucia. I represent to the Solidarity people to the South Bronx and the Solidarity people to the Dominican Republic too. I need to talk about that Venezuela no está sola. Venezuela no está sola. Venezuela no need war. Venezuela need peace. Because one town to America in war is American in war. Because one town to the America is friend to the every American. For that I start here. This is my first time.
Great job.
This is my first time to see to the one president say I am president. This is like Guaido. I am president. You know, go to the election. Then you know is president. This is Nicolas Maduro. Another thing is, many people say Nicolas Maduro is dictator. Never, because Nicolas Maduro take the president to the when the Chavez died. But now is the fair election for the Nicolas Maduro. For that, Nicolas Maduro no es dictador. That Venezuela es un pueblo libre. Venezuela no need hands the United States inside. Because if Venezuela have problems, the Venezuela people need to take it to the solution for the problems, not another people.
So the next person we want to bring up is Max Blumenthal.
It feels so good to be here, and I was really hoping Jill Stein could have been here in person because I wanted to swear her in as interim president of the United States. Can we do that? President Stein. Against the dictator, Gloria La Riva is here. Can we put an American flag sash on you and have you come up like Juan Guaido at the U.S. Constitution? You are my opposition leader, and this is the real opposition, this is the real resistance. And what we tried to do when I went down to Venezuela with my team, with my squad, Anya Parampil, Ben Norton, and Aaron Mate, yes, is to break the media blockade. Brian, you might remember during the Iraq War, I mean, you would get called in for debates, right, on MSNBC, and Phil Donahue was on air, he was a top-rated host. It was still corporate media, but there was debates. There were debates. There are no debates anymore. It's just a monotonous narrative being rammed down your throat. We have to understand that we are in an information war. That our media is not the news anymore. It is an information war. It's the megaphone of Cold War, new Cold War soft power organizations. And so when we went down to Venezuela, we were combating that with the support of people like you. And I'm sure most of you heard about the burning aid buses. Well, it was kind of like watching that scene on the Santander Bridge when the US tried to ram the aid across. They brought in these basically street hooligans who MSNBC portrayed as protesters and activists. They threw Molotov cocktails on top of US aid trucks, which actually contained no medicine, nothing that could have actually helped anyone. And we saw it with our own eyes. It's like, don't piss on my head and tell me it's raining. They just burned the aid trucks. So I'm gonna take to the Gray Zone Project and report what I saw. Then 2 weeks later, I wake up and I get this flood of emails and direct messages and everyone's saying, great job, it was true, you're not a conspiracist, you're not crazy, the New York Times said it was true. They said it was an accident though. Yeah, it's just an accident. No, they were trying to create a provocation to escalate the conflict, to justify an intervention, and we called it out, and with the support of people like you, and many of you were calling it out too, we basically scooped this phony fake news media, and that's really what it is, and that's what we're going to keep doing. I want to talk about one other story we did that'll help us understand what's happening in Venezuela. And you know, Eugene, I know you talked about this on your show. I heard you talking about it on By Any Means Necessary, which is one of the finest podcasts radio shows in this country. Along with Loud and Clear. What I listen to at the gym when I'm kind of like ventilating my anger and having violent fantasies about all the journalists attacking me is that Eugene's on headphones. There was a disgusting memo that appeared on the Stratfor leaks on WikiLeaks. WikiLeaks being hosted by one of the most heroic journalists who's in de facto solitary confinement right now, Julian Assange. We need to see Julian Assange free. And this memo was written in 2010 by a group called Canvas in Belgrade, Serbia. It was a group funded by the United States government, which has trained thousands of activists around the world to do color revolutions, to basically get out in the street and do AstroTurf protests. And this memo called for the activists they had trained in Venezuela to exploit a looming electricity crisis and nationwide blackouts. They called the blackouts a watershed event. And that foreshadowed what we just saw in Venezuela, and it also foreshadowed the rise of Juan Guaido, who was one of these activists trained by Canvas, along with his mentor, Leopoldo Lopez. And they were not nonviolent activists. They led some extremely violent protests, which all of us would have been jailed for and painted as traitors if we had done in the United States. They were called guarimbas, and they held Caracas under siege. It led to the killings of hundreds. They used a tactic called the huayra, where they wrapped barbed wire across roads to seal off the roads, and many Venezuelans, common people, were beheaded. Juan Guaido denied this tactic and called it a myth. And he had good reason to deny it because Juan Guaido participated in these protests, in these violent riots. Things that he has done, we would have all been branded traitors and jailed for. And so we have to understand this is happening around the world. This is happening in Nicaragua, which is a target of the Trump administration, where thousands of activists have been trained by soft power organizations like Canvas, like the National Endowment for Democracy, like USAID. It's happened in Syria with one of the phoniest humanitarian frauds we've ever seen in our lifetimes, the Nobel Prize nominated Al-Qaeda affiliated white helmets. And it happened in Haiti too. And people at Haiti Liberty know this happened there with the International Republican Institute and Stanley.
Yeah, I'm supposed to.
Before I get to realize it for what it was. But for most of the period since Vietnam, we've been what I would have called, what I could call a covert empire. Covert really means it's just secret. It means you deny a policy of plausible denial, where you have cover stories to mislead people. That's what's really going on. Specifically, we're a covert empire, since it denies we are an empire, that we actually decide who rules another country and takes steps as to who lives and who dies in that country, who's the police, who governs them. We deny that in Central America and Indonesia, Middle East, and around the world. Also, we use methods that are plausibly deniable, that hidden, that hide who's in charge of it, very specifically that the president is in charge of it, so that if other lies fail, at least the blame will go on the CIA, let's say, not the president, actually is the main action on these events. What Venezuela has amazed me in recent times is how open the talk of regime change. Regime change, which has become now just a catchword, is said very commonly and ordinarily and naturally in the mainstream press as to and even in Congress, is the very definition of empire. It's the very definition of the assertion that we have the right as capable to decide who governs another country. Basically in our interest, and that almost always means in corporate interest in this country. Sometimes military bases, but again, it's all in pursuit, basically, of corporate interest in the company. The preparations often turn out to be the same. 1 million people marched around the world yesterday, following Greta Thunberg's example of one person, then 15, now 16, sitting in front of her parliament in Stockholm. I had the very great honor of joining her on one of her Friday protests in Stockholm about a month ago. She's my new hero. Nobody could demonstrate more clearly that one person can make a difference. And now we see yesterday 1 million people marching around the world on a Friday, a strike, a general strike against school, a weekday protest kicking off in demanding that their derelict seniors, their elders, like myself and my generation and from behind me, should act to end fossil fuel emissions. I mention that because they do have not only a country, Donald Trump in particular, voting against that in the direction of increasing fossil emissions, but backed up by major American corporations, ExxonMobil, Chevron, and the others. Interestingly, it's the same power elite structure here that's involved in Venezuela. A clear lust for controlling the oil of Venezuela, just as was involved in the invasion of Iraq, which was clear aggression and clear-cut aggression, and is involved in the Middle East in general. But of course, when you talk about oil reserves, you come back to this hemisphere in Venezuela, where the idea of nationalizing oil companies, as done by Hugo Chavez, is the way to lose the mandate of heaven when it comes to U.S. decision as to who is to rule that country. That's what we've been fighting ever since. They say what's been rather amazing to me in recent weeks is how open this assertion of imperial authority has been. I can't call it covert, but it's accompanied, I'm sure, by covert means as usual. And just add to it a willingness to just come out openly. And what is particularly surprising is how many countries have joined that. I really can't understand it, honestly. How widespread the support for this idea of regime change is, as though we're openly claiming ourselves to be an outlaw state, ignoring the UN Charter, ignoring any notions of self-determination, fairly openly. To come to clandestine operations, I would say that I would have really very little doubt, though I can't say I'm certain, but I would say the odds very much favor the claims of the government in this time, which is not a government that can be relied on in every case. I'm sure that Maduro lies like every other government official in the world. You have to judge for yourself the circumstances and other sources of information. In this particular case, would be charged with sabotage or clandestine activity to cyber war, probably, to bring down the Venezuelan government. I have to say, the circumstantial evidence in this case is very, very, very strong. I would be very surprised to discover that it was a pure coincidence. It's very time when we're openly saying we decide who is the legitimate president of Venezuela right now, and we're calling for every kind of means to overthrow that government. An unprecedented power failure that brings to their knees the country, torturing the country in a different way, but for the same effect as the torture of Vietnam by 8 or 9 years of heavy bombing, the torture of Iraq by invasion, and earlier by sanction on Iraq, again for control of oil in that case. I would say that the chance that that's a pure coincidence is very small, and that the debts that have resulted for that are to be laid to the American officials, starting with Trump, but also Pence, Elliott Abrams, all the others who have been involved. Finally, opposition to American invasion should be strong. The idea of a general strike, as was done in effect yesterday by the students all over the world. It was done in the moratorium in 1969, which prevented a Nixon use of nuclear weapons against Vietnam. It was a general strike during a weekday, people taking off from work and school, stopping everything, and it had the effect of causing Nixon to pull back from his plans actually to invade that region and use nuclear weapons. So there must not be U.S. military action, and there must be an end to U.S. illegal, criminal sabotage and of the economy in Venezuela, which I say I'm very, very convinced is probably happening right now. And I thank you for raising your voices now, but it will take more than that. Our Congress and the White House media must be called out on their tacit support of this imperialism and stop. Thank you for being here.